Wimbledon came to a close on Sunday as men's and women's champions were crowned this weekend. Let's recap the men's and women's final, as well as the tournament. We can do it with a guy who I talk a ton of basketball with on here, but for people who may not know, he's also a major tennis enthusiast. He's also covered the game. It's my guy, Jarod Hector, who joins me now. Jarod, what's going on?
I am good. Just like men's champion Carlos Alcaraz, I contain multitudes, Dexter. It's not just basketball with me.
Yes, not just one thing, not one thing in the game, many different things, many versatile skills. We saw that from Alcaraz on Sunday. We'll get to that right now because, Jarod, let's start with the men's final, where we saw a 14-minute opening game in the showdown between Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz, and it looked like it was going to be another marathon final. At least I thought that. However, Alcaraz wins this in straight sets in just under 2.5 hours. What was the Spaniard able to do in order to dispose of the Joker so quickly?
I mean, Dexter, he was in complete mastery of his game, mixing in the slice, keeping Djokovic on his toes. So Djokovic wasn't sure what was coming in terms of pace, right? Was Carlos going to take something off a shot? Was he going to thump it really hard and hit the lines on the baseline? He was struggling. And despite actually only getting 59% of his first serves in, Alcaraz, he managed to win 84% of those first serve points, which is incredible. He was elite at net, and he had Djokovic under pressure on his service games pretty much all match, breaking him 5 times, 42 winners, only 24 unforced errors. He played big tennis, and he was rewarded.
Well, he was rewarded well, and you see him there with the Wimbledon trophy, being able to hoist that at the end of the match. Now, in this men's final, Jarod, Djokovic, we talk about him, he was uncharacteristically sloppy. 23 unforced errors in this one. Considering the Joker recently had knee surgery, were you impressed that the 37-year-old reached the final, or do you view what we witnessed on Sunday as sort of an official changing of the guard in men's tennis?
I mean, there's sort of many prongs to that question, right? Like, on the one hand, yes, right, a 37-year-old still making a Wimbledon final, Grand Slam final after having knee surgery 5 months earlier, as you mentioned. But with everything we know going on with modern science and the way that doctors can get players back from injuries, and injuries are no longer things that may mean your career is over, depending on the severity, I'm not that surprised, right? Djokovic is an elite athlete and an excellent player. Again, you mentioned that uncharacteristics. I would say that Alcaraz just had him under pressure, and in a way that he hasn't felt that kind of pressure before, probably not since he played peak Rafael Nadal, right? That's the kind of player that can put you under pressure. And I'm saying Alcaraz is going to win 20-plus Grand Slam titles, but he has a big game, and you're able to see him do that. As far as changing the guard, for sure that's potentially happening, right? Djokovic is 37, as you mentioned. Alcaraz is 21, already has 4 majors. Jannik Sinner's only 22 and just won Australia. We got a lot of young guys. You got Shelton and Tiafoe, who've made runs at majors. They haven't quite found that consistency yet, but they've got some big games to them. Medvedev's already won a tournament. He's a little bit older than those guys in their mid-20s. He's probably later 20s. Zverev, Rublev. So, yeah, there's a lot of good players out there. And I do think that, the Big Three era is definitely over because 2 of them are already retired, right? Or Big Four, I should say, with Murray also on the way out. So, yeah, I think we're seeing definitely a new emergence of tennis superstars.
Yeah, definitely a new emergence in the game on the men's side. Let's take it to the women's side, where we knew one woman was going to win their first Wimbledon title, but in the end, Barbora Krejcikova knocked off Jasmine Paolini. It's the second Grand Slam title for Krejcikova. What did she do right in the final to pull off the upset of Paolini?
She was slightly better on the bigger points, right? And that's such a big thing in tennis, right? It's 2-all, 30 love, right? Like, can you hold serve? Or it's 2-all, love 30, you're down. Can you hold serve and come back from love 30 down to hold and go up 3-2 as opposed to get broken and now be down 3-2 with that person, with your opponent serving, right? So she was slightly better on the big points. It was a tight match, and Paolini had that momentum coming from that second set, right? Where she raced out and won that 6-2, and we're tied at a set apiece. But I do think Krejcikova's prior major experience totally helped her a ton, and she was able to seize that momentum and then finally get that final break in the third set to win it.
Yeah, took care of business there in the third set, gets the win to go. And Jarod, last thing for me, as we head into hard court season now, done with grass, and move towards the final Grand Slam tournament of the year, which would be the U.S. Open, which male player do you like to have success on the hard court, and which woman do you think is primed to show out as well?
I mean, this will be interesting heading to the U.S. Open, right? Dexter, the last major of the year, but we have something special happening before the U.S. Open this year, the Olympics. Not everyone is playing the Olympics, but, by the time you get to this time of the year, the players are starting to get a little tired, right? Their body's feeling it a bit. So who can come into the summer hard court season the freshest and the healthiest? That'll play a big determining factor in who's able to triumph in Queens in September. how can you bet against Carlitos right now? Alcaraz is just on fire. Won the French, won Wimbledon. Now remember, he was hurt for Australia, didn't play that tournament. Could have won that one, and he could be going for the actual Grand Slam. So I mean, he's going to be tough to beat. Don't count out those guys I mentioned before, Shelton, Tiafoe, right? Those guys who have made runs in the semis before. Medvedev is arguably maybe the best hardcourt player in the world. Sinner, who I mentioned, already won the Australian Open. But I do think Carlos Alcaraz is the guy who I would look as the favorite to win the U.S. Open. On the women's side, Swiatek is outstanding. She did lose here at Wimbledon, obviously, but won the French. We know she's king of that. She has a U.S. Open title. Coco Gauff will have something to say about that, as she is a defending champion. And we can't count out Sabalenka and Rybakina as well.
Yeah, can't count those out as well, too. It's going to be interesting to see who can step up on the women's side as well. Coco Gauff will have to go back-to-back in terms of U.S. Opens after she won last year, her first Grand Slam title. Wimbledon's done. A little bit more of tennis to go through this year. A lot more exciting matches to be played. That is Jarod Hector. Don't put him in a box. You don't just put him in the basketball box. He knows some tennis as well, too. Showed out here. Jarod, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.